How old do you think your body really is right now? Not the number on your birth certificate, but the age your cells have quietly been becoming from the choices you make every day. I am 104 years old as I speak to you, and I will not begin with poetry or comfort. I will begin with truth. Your future health is not waiting for you somewhere ahead. It is being built, cell by cell, this very moment, by what you choose to eat, how you move, how you rest, and what you repeat without thinking. When I was young, I believed what many people still believe today, that health is something you deal with later, that you can borrow energy from your youth and pay it back when you are older, that the body is forgiving without limits. I was wrong. The body is patient, yes, but it is also precise. It records everything. Every spoonful of sugar does not make you sick today. Every night of poor sleep does not collapse your health tomorrow. Every hour sitting still does not weaken you immediately. That is why people feel safe continuing their habits. There is no alarm, no immediate pain, no visible consequence. But something is happening, always. Inside you, your blood vessels are either staying flexible or slowly stiffening. Your cells are either managing energy efficiently or beginning to resist insulin. Your muscles are either being preserved or quietly shrinking. Your brain is either being nourished or gradually inflamed. You do not feel these changes at first. That is the deception. By the time most people notice, when the diagnosis comes, when the fatigue becomes constant, when the body begins to fail, they think it happened suddenly. But I have lived long enough to tell you, nothing in the body happens suddenly. It is always the result of thousands of small decisions, repeated daily over years. I've seen two kinds of people across my lifetime. The first kind says, "I feel fine," and continues living without awareness. They eat without thinking, sit without moving, sleep without discipline. They trust that tomorrow will be like today. The second kind understands something deeper, that today is not just today, it is a vote for the body they will live in 10, 20, 30 years from now. I did not always belong to the second group. I learned late, but not too late. At some point in my life, I realized that health is not a matter of intensity. It is a matter of consistency. Not what you do once, but what you do every day. Not what you intend, but what you repeat. And once I understood that, everything changed. So listen carefully, not to me as an old man, but to the evidence of a life that has stretched beyond a century. You are not waiting for your future health. You are creating it, right now, every single day. I will take you deeper now because understanding this at the surface is not enough. You must see the mechanism clearly, how your daily choices quietly construct either strength or decline inside your body over time. When I was in my 30s, I thought discipline meant occasional effort. I would eat well for a few days, then return to indulgence. I would exercise intensely for a week, then stop for a month. I believed that bursts of good behavior could cancel out long periods of neglect. Many people still live this way. But the body does not work in bursts. It works in patterns. Your biology is not responding to what you do once. It is responding to what you do repeatedly. Every repeated action becomes a signal, and those signals shape your metabolism, your hormones, your inflammation levels, and even how your genes express themselves. Let me explain this in a way that is simple but precise. When you eat highly processed food rich in refined sugar, excess salt, and damaged fats, your body does not immediately break down. Instead, it adapts. Your blood sugar rises more often, your insulin is released more frequently, and over time, your cells begin to resist that signal. This is what people later call insulin resistance. But when does it begin? Not at diagnosis. It begins years earlier, silently. Each time you repeat the same pattern. The same is true with movement. If you sit for most of your day, nothing dramatic happens at first. You do not suddenly become weak. But your muscles receive less stimulus. Your circulation slows. Your mitochondria, the small engines inside your cells, become less efficient. And slowly, your body becomes a system that conserves energy instead of producing it. Then one day you feel tired all the time, and you wonder why. I'm telling you, it did not happen that day. It happened through accumulation. This is the law of accumulation, the most important law I learned in my life. Small actions, repeated consistently, become powerful forces over time. Not because they are intense, but because they are continuous. A teaspoon of sugar does not harm you. But repeated every day, it becomes a pattern. A skipped walk does not weaken you. But repeated over years, it becomes a lifestyle. A night of poor sleep does not destroy your brain. But repeated, it changes your entire system. Your body is always adapting to the signals you give it. If you give it signals of movement, it builds strength. If you give it signals of stillness, it adapts to weakness. If you give it signals of nourishment, it maintains balance. If you give it signals of excess, it prepares for disease. This is not opinion. This is biological reality. I remember a man I knew in my 40s. He was strong, energetic, full of confidence. He laughed when people talked about health. "I'll deal with that when I'm older," he used to say. He ate whatever he wanted, slept whenever he wanted, and believed his strength would last forever. For many years, he appeared right. Then slowly, things changed. First it was fatigue, then weight gain, then high blood pressure, then diabetes, then complications. People said, "It happened so fast." But I knew the truth. It had been building for decades. And I also knew another man, quiet, unremarkable at first glance. He was not extreme. He did not follow complicated diets. He did not train like an athlete, but he did simple things, consistently. He walked every day, not far, but regularly. He ate mostly whole foods, not perfectly, but intentionally. He slept at consistent times. He did not wait for motivation. He relied on routine. When we were young, no one paid attention to him. There was nothing impressive about what he was doing. But as the years passed, something remarkable happened. He did not decline. While others began to struggle with their bodies, he remained steady, not because he avoided aging, but because he had built a body that could age well. This is the difference people fail to see. Health is not built through dramatic effort. It is built through quiet consistency, and consistency is not exciting. It does not feel powerful in the moment. It feels small, almost insignificant, but over time, it becomes everything. Let us talk about food more clearly, because this is where many people misunderstand the most. People ask, what is the perfect diet? I have lived long enough to tell you that is the wrong question. The better question is, what patterns am I repeating every day? Because your body does not respond to occasional meals. It responds to patterns. If most of your meals are built from real, whole foods, vegetables, fruits, natural proteins, unprocessed ingredients, your body receives stable signals. Your blood sugar remains more balanced. Your inflammation stays lower. Your organs function with less strain. But if most of your meals come from processed sources, packaged foods, refined sugars, excessive oils, your body is constantly managing imbalance. Again, not immediately, but continuously. And what is continuous becomes permanent. The same applies to movement. You do not need to become an athlete. That is another misunderstanding. The body does not require extreme performance. It requires regular activation. Walking, stretching, maintaining muscle through simple resistance. These are signals to your body that you still need strength, coordination, and resilience. Without those signals, the body begins to reduce what it no longer thinks you need. Muscle declines. Balance weakens. Energy decreases. Not because you are old, but because your body has adapted to inactivity. I am 104 years old, and I will tell you something clearly. Age does not remove your ability to influence your body, but your habits determine how much of that ability remains. Now let us speak about sleep, because it is often ignored until it becomes a problem. Sleep is not simply rest, it is regulation. It is during sleep that your brain clears waste, your hormones rebalance, your cells repair damage, your nervous system resets. If you consistently reduce your sleep or disrupt it, your body does not collapse immediately. It compensates. But compensation is not the same as health. Over time, poor sleep increases inflammation, disrupts metabolism, weakens mental clarity, and accelerates aging processes. Again, the pattern matters more than the moment. What I want you to understand is this. There is no single decision that determines your future health. There are only repeated decisions. And those repeated decisions form patterns. And those patterns form your biology. And your biology becomes your destiny. This is why I say to you, not as advice, but as observation from a life that has extended beyond a century. You cannot escape the consequences of your patterns, but you can choose them. Every meal is a signal. Every step is a signal. Every hour of sleep is a signal. And your body is always listening. When I changed my life, I did not change everything at once. I changed what I repeated. I stopped chasing perfection, and I started building consistency. I made simple choices, but I made them daily. And over time, those choices became my health. Not luck, not genetics, not fate, just patterns. So if you ask me for a secret, I will not give you something complicated. I will give you something simple, but demanding. Look at your daily life, not what you plan to do, not what you did once, but what you repeat. Because that, more than anything else, is what your future health depends on. There is another layer to this that most people never fully understand, and it is the reason why even intelligent, well-informed individuals still fail to protect their future health. It is not a lack of knowledge. It is a failure to respect delayed consequences. Human beings are wired to respond to what is immediate. Pain, pleasure, reward, these are things we feel now. But the body operates on a different timeline. It responds to what is repeated, not what is felt. This creates a dangerous gap. You eat something harmful and nothing happens immediately. You skip movement and you still feel fine. You sleep poorly and you can still function the next day. So your mind concludes, this is not a problem. But your body does not agree. It simply does not speak yet. This silence is what misleads people. I've lived long enough to see how this silence becomes betrayal. Not because the body turns against you, but because you ignored what it was quietly becoming. When I was younger, I used to trust how I felt in the moment. If I had energy, I assumed I was healthy. If I was not in pain, I assumed nothing was wrong. This is how most people live, but feeling is not the same as function. You can feel fine while your arteries are narrowing. You can feel normal while your blood sugar is rising more often than it should. You can feel strong while your muscles are slowly declining from lack of use. Health is not defined by how you feel today. It is defined by what your body is becoming over time. This is why awareness must replace comfort. Let me explain something that took me many years to truly understand. The body is always preparing for the future you are signaling. If you consistently overeat, your body prepares to store. If you consistently move, your body prepares to perform. If you consistently rest well, your body prepares to repair. If you consistently stress without recovery, your body prepares to survive, not to thrive. These preparations are invisible at first, but they accumulate, and eventually they reveal themselves as your condition. I once met a doctor in my later years who explained something to me in very simple terms. He said, "Your body is not reacting to what you did yesterday. It is reacting to what you have been doing for years." That sentence stayed with me, because it explains why people are often confused by their own health. They change something for a few days and expect results. They eat well for a week and expect their body to transform. They exercise briefly and expect strength to return. But the body is not responding to those short efforts. It is still operating on the patterns it has learned over time. This is why consistency is not just important, it is everything. Now, let us go deeper into something even more practical: decision-making. Most people think health decisions are made in big moments: starting a diet, joining a gym, making a resolution. But those moments are rare. What truly shapes your future health are the small, ordinary decisions you barely notice. What you choose for breakfast when you are in a hurry. Whether you sit or stand when you have the option. Whether you go to bed on time or stay awake a little longer. Whether you choose convenience or intention. These decisions seem insignificant, but they are repeated daily, and repetition gives them power. I did not become healthy because I made one powerful decision. I became healthy because I reduced the number of decisions I needed to make. I created routines. I ate similar types of meals regularly. I moved at consistent times. I treated sleep as a fixed part of my life, not something flexible. By doing this, I removed the burden of constant choice. I replaced it with structure, because willpower is unreliable, but structure is stable. If your health depends on motivation, it will fail. If it depends on routine, it will last. This is something younger people often resist. They want freedom. They want variety. They want to feel inspired. But the body does not require inspiration. It requires stability. You do not need to feel like moving. You need to move. You do not need to feel like eating well. You need to eat well. You do not need to feel like sleeping on time. You need to sleep on time. Feelings change. Biology responds to action. Now let me speak about something that many people do not want to hear: self-control. Not extreme control, not punishment, but the ability to delay what feels good now for what will serve you later. When you choose food, you are not only choosing taste, you are choosing a metabolic response. When you choose to sit instead of move, you're not only choosing comfort, you're choosing adaptation. When you stay awake late, You're not only choosing entertainment, you're choosing disruption. Every choice carries a consequence, not immediately, but inevitably. This is why self-control is not restriction. It is direction. It is the ability to guide your future instead of reacting to your present. I did not live to 104 because I avoided all mistakes. I made many. But at some point, I stopped repeating them. And that is the real turning point in a person's life, not when they learn what is right, but when they stop repeating what is wrong. Let me give you a clearer picture of how this plays out over time. Imagine two people at the age of 30. One chooses convenience most of the time. Processed food, minimal movement, irregular sleep. Nothing extreme, just small, repeated compromises. The other chooses slightly better patterns. Not perfect, but more intentional. More movement, more real food, more consistent rest. At 40, the difference is small. At 50, it becomes noticeable. At 60, it becomes significant. At 70, it becomes undeniable. This is how time amplifies behavior. Time does not treat everyone equally. It magnifies what you repeatedly do. That is why the title is true. Your future health depends on the choices you make today, not because today is special, but because today will be repeated, and what is repeated becomes who you are. Now I want to leave you with something practical, something you can actually apply without confusion. Do not try to change everything. Choose 3 areas: your food, your movement, your sleep. And instead of asking, what is the best, ask, what can I repeat? What kind of meals can you eat consistently that support your body? What kind of movement can you do regularly without stopping after a week? What kind of sleep routine can you maintain without negotiation? Build your life around what is sustainable, not what is impressive. Because impressive fades, sustainable remains. At 104, I no longer think about health the way I once did. I do not think in terms of goals or achievements. I think in terms of preservation and continuation. And I can tell you this with complete clarity. The body you will live in tomorrow is being shaped today, not dramatically, not loudly, but quietly, relentlessly, and faithfully responding to everything you repeat. So if you want to change your future, do not wait for a moment of motivation. Change what you do when nothing feels urgent, because that is where your future is decided. If you remember nothing else from what I have said, remember this. Your future health is not a mystery, it is a pattern. And patterns are built in the quiet moments, when no one is watching, when nothing feels urgent, when the consequences are still invisible. I'm 104 years old, and I've had enough time to observe what lasts and what fails. People often ask me, what is the secret? They expect something rare, something complicated, something they have not heard before. But the truth is almost disappointing in its simplicity. There is no secret. There is only what you repeat. I have seen people search for perfect diets, advanced methods, and new discoveries. And yet they ignore the basics they already understand. Not because they are difficult to learn, but because they are difficult to sustain. That is where most people lose, not in knowledge, but in consistency. You do not need more information. You need alignment between what you know and what you do every day. Because your body does not respond to your intentions. It responds to your actions. And your actions, when repeated, become your condition. If you eat well once, nothing changes. If you move once, nothing changes. If you sleep well for a night, nothing changes. But if you repeat these things, not perfectly, but consistently, Everything changes, slowly, silently, but permanently. This is the part that requires patience, because the same law that builds disease also builds health. The same accumulation that weakens the body can strengthen it. The same time that magnifies poor habits can magnify good ones. But you must respect the process. You must be willing to act without immediate reward. You must be willing to trust that what you are building cannot yet be seen. That is what separates those who age with strength from those who decline too soon. It is not luck. It is not genetics alone. It is not fate. It is discipline in small things, repeated over a long time. At my age, I do not think about how long I have lived. I think about how I have lived. And when I look back, I do not see one decision that defined my health. I see thousands of small ones, meals chosen without excess, steps taken when it would have been easier to sit, sleep respected when it would have been tempting to ignore it. Nothing extraordinary, just repeated. So I will leave you with this, not as advice, but as a reality you cannot escape. You are already becoming your future self, not someday, not when you decide to start, but right now. And the question is not whether your choices matter. The question is, what are they building?